Man, I've been trying to lie to myself for weeks now. Like, straight up, I've been dodging the inevitable. And by the inevitable, I mean Ilia Topuria knocking out Charles Oliveira. And that hurts to say, dude. It really does. I even dropped a whole video breaking down how Charles could win. How the kicks, the pressure, the grappling, all of it could line up in his favor. And to be clear, I still stand by that. I still believe Charles has a real shot in this fight. It's not some fantasy or fluke scenario. The path is obviously there. It's just very narrow, I would say. But the closer we get to this fight, the more I feel that sinking feeling in my chest. You know what I'm talking about, the gut feeling. And it's telling me the same thing over and over. Topuria is probably going to win this. And I hate saying it, bro. I hate picking against Charles. This is the Bronx we're talking about, you know? One of the most exciting, violent sometimes, comeback heavy legend, the UFC has ever seen. But if I'm going to be honest with myself, if I'm actually putting my name on a pick for this Saturday, I've got to go with the odds, man. I've got to go with the guy who's got the momentum, the composure, the defense, and that scary power, And it's probably Topuria. But don't get twisted. Charles can still flip it on its head. It's not impossible. It's just, in my opinion, very unlikely. And that's what makes this fight so damn tense, man. But even with all that being said, man, it's so hard to pick against Charles. Like, generally, this is a guy who can literally flip the whole narrative, People used to say he was soft, that he folds under pressure. Now he's the dude who's walking through hellfire and submitting killers. We've seen him get dropped by Poirier, get cracked by Chandler, dropped by Gagey, and every single time he just gets back up, keeps moving forward, and finds the finish. And that's what makes him so dangerous. He's chaos, but it's chaos with the system. Like, yeah, his chin's always out there, and yeah, he's hittable, but if you can't relax for a second, because even if you drop him, he'll pull guard, bait you into triangles, or try to wrap you into a guillotine mid-scramble. And even if he doesn't sub you, he'll keep pushing, landing knees up the middle, and making it ugly. Because this is what you have to remember, okay, in this matchup. The fact that he's taller than Ilia, longer than Ilia, and he throws everything, teeps, front kicks, elbow, clinch knees. If he gets that tie clinch going, bro, Ilia's going to be eating knees all night. And don't forget, Charles has underrated wrestling. He straight up bodied Michael Chandler with the trip and worked over Arman Tsarukyan in the clinch. Like, he's not just a BJJ guy anymore. He's got takedown variety now. He can lift, drag, or shoot and create chaos on the ground. And with his long limbs. If he wraps Ilia up in a full guard, that's not an easy place to be. So yeah, even though I'm leaning towards Ilia, this pick does hurt because Charles doesn't need to be perfect. He just needs to create one moment, and he's made a career out of doing that nobody expected it. So we've already said it, Charles is chaos with the system, but when you really look at what gives him a shot in this matchup, it comes down to how those tools match up against Ilia specifically. I mean, for starters, the front kicks. That's probably one of the biggest disruptors. Ilia wants to plant, read you, and fire clean. But Charles doesn't give you that kind of space. He's jamming push kicks into your midsection, throwing teeps to the face, and making sure you're reacting instead of dictating. That's a problem for Ilia if he can't find a rhythm earlier. Then there's the clinch. Against shorter fighters, Charles thrives here. He's got that long, high Muay Thai frame, and if he grabs the collar tie, Ilia could be eating knees all day. We've seen Charles break guys in this range, and if Ilia slows down even a little, that clinch gets very real. The grappling, that's always lurking. And no, I'm not saying Ilia is lost on the ground. He's clearly solid, okay? But Charles just needs one window, one bad scramble, one lazy entry. He'll wrap your neck or throw up a triangle with those spider limbs, okay? That guard is dangerous even off his back. But here's where it gets tricky, okay? Where the doubt starts creeping in again. For all these weapons to work, Charles needs the fight to happen on his terms. He needs to get the respect early, land those kicks, get inside, maybe drag it to the mat. But to do that, he has to survive long enough. And that's the part that I'm not sure about. So after all that, after laying out everything Charles can bring to the table, here's why I still can't shake this feeling, man. Why deep down I keep circling back to Ilia Topuria. It's not just that he's undefeated, it's how he fights. Ilia is one of those rare guys where you don't even need to look at the stats to understand how elite this guy is. You can see it in the way he moves, the way he manages distance, the way he slips a jab by half an inch, then comes back with a three-piece that lands clean on the chin. He doesn't fight like a guy who's still figuring it out. He fights like he's already downloaded your entire game plan within the first few minutes. And that's what makes him so dangerous. He's a reader. He doesn't rush. He doesn't spam. He studies you in real time. I mean, go watch the Emmett fight. Ilia spent the first minute just feinting, just tracking. Then once he got Josh's rhythm, he started chopping him down piece by piece. He'll lure you into thinking you're going to have success. Then the moment you overextend, he counters clean. He's like a sniper who lets you walk into the scope, okay? And then there's the power. This dude has thudding power in both his hands. And not just puncher's chance power. We're talking clean, well-timed, fight-ending power. He flatlined Ryan Hall, beat the brakes off Bryce Mitchell, dropped and brutalized Emmett, and then slept Max Holloway, a guy we all thought was impossible to knock out. Max has been in the wars with Dustin, with Yair, with Volk 3 times, and Ilia made him look like a highlight reel. That's not just knockout power, that's power with intent and timing. And it's not like Ilia is in this wild overhand spamming brawler either. He's technical as hell. He slips, rolls, rips to the body, goes upstairs, and doesn't waste any movement. He's defensively sound, keeps a tight shell, parries kicks, rolls with punches, even uses that Mayweather-style shoulder rolls at times. And you rarely see him panic. He's calm in chaos, and he doesn't bite on feints or swing wildly unless he knows there's something there. And what really adds another layer is his body work. People sleep on that. Ilia attacks the body better than most lightweights, even though he's coming up from 145. He rips those liver shots early, and you can see how it wears guys down. That's something that can absolutely mess with Charles, who stands tall and tends to leave his midsection exposed when he shells up or enters the clinch. Now, when it comes to the grappling, no, he's not Islam Makhachev. But Ilia is not some striker, who just folds if it hits the mat either. He's got legit BJJ base. He submitted Bryce Mitchell, which nobody has done except Gene Silva, and he controls guys on the ground when needed. And that's the scary part. He doesn't even need to use it. His striking is so layered, so precise, that we haven't even seen the full extent of his grappling game yet. And if it hits the mat, he is strong, dude. He's got balance and he's hard to hold. And based on what we saw in the build-up in that Islam Makhachev fight, which obviously didn't happen, the guy's been preparing for elite-level wrestling and grappling. You also have to look at how Ilias handles chaos. He doesn't rush. He doesn't let the moment get away from him. Even when Max Holloway started landing, and he did land some clean shots early, Ilia never looked overwhelmed. He made reads, stayed calm, and eventually found that opening. That kind of composure, dude, that's rare. And I know, people will bring up the Jai Herbert fight. The one time Ilia fought at 155 before, and yeah, he got clipped. He got rocked early. But here's the thing. He came back, put Herbert to sleep, and to me, that's resilience. That's experience. And that was a much younger, less polished Ilia. The guy we're seeing now, he's filled out physically, he's adjusting to make the weight, and he doesn't make the same mistakes, okay? So when you combine all of that, the speed, the timing, the power, the defense, the patience, it all becomes really hard to picture Charles surviving to 15 to 25 minutes with this guy without getting caught. Like, yes, Charles has the tools to win. He absolutely does. But Topuria is built to exploit the exact kind of openings that Charles gives. A high chin, slow head movement, standing tall in the pocket. Those are red flags against someone like Ilia. And the most dangerous thing about him, he doesn't miss opportunities. He doesn't waste his big moments. If he cracks you once, he's following up with the kill shot. Not a sloppy flurry, but cold, calculated finishing sequence. That's how he gets people out of there. So yeah, I still want to believe Charles can do it. But when I go down the list of everything Ilia does and everything Charles tends to give up in exchanges, man, it's hard not to feel like the ending is written, okay? Alright, so now that we've laid out who these guys are and what they bring to the table, let's actually step into the cage for a second. Let's talk about how this fight might play out, starting with round 1, because honestly, this round is everything. Right out of the gate, I don't think we see Ilia explode or rush anything. That's just not who he is. He's not going to come out like Gagey or Chandler, trying to blitz Charles into the fence and hope for a brawl. Ilia's going to do what Ilia always does. He's going to feint, frame, track your movement, and start downloading your pattern. You'll probably see a lot of this stiffness from him, just watching, hands up, eyes locked, maybe a couple of jabs to test the range. But most likely, he's just observant, getting his reads. On the other side, you already know what Charles is going to do. He's going to come forward. That's his DNA, okay? He doesn't know how to fight off this back foot. He's walking down, snapping up with those teeps to the body, throwing these long leg kicks, maybe even going for that quick tie clinch entry if he can crowd Ilia early, He wants chaos. He wants to force reactions. And in round 1, that's when he's the most dangerous because he's fresh explosive, and hasn't absorbed damage yet. And I actually think Charles wins the first minute or two. Like generally, he might land some solid front kicks to the midsection, maybe gets Ilia circling a bit more than usual. He might even connect with something, a glance head kick, a sharp knee as Ilia dips low. Ilia's defense is tight, but Charles is awkward enough to sneak something through. And that's the key here, awareness. Charles isn't clean, he's not the crisp textbook striker, but he throws in a way that's hard to read, and that weird chaos makes him a little bit unpredictable early, I would say. And if Ilia hasn't figured out that timing yet, he might get tagged with something weird in the middle of a slip or while reaching for a counter. And if Charles gets bold, you might see a clinch attempt near the cage, something we see him do against Chandler. He loves to walk you into the fence, grab a body lock, and either trip you or wear you down with some knees and elbows. If Ilia's still cold, still reading mode, that clinch exchange can get real interesting. He's shorter than Charles, so there's a real threat of getting tied up in a bad positions, eating body shots, and maybe even getting turned or tripped. But here's where it starts to shift. Once we get past the 2-minute mark, once Ilia starts seeing the patterns, once the pressure stops being overwhelming and starts being predictable, that's when the tempo changes. That's when Ilia starts letting the right hand go. That's when he starts snapping the body shots between Charles's long strikes. That's when the calm turns into calculated violence, okay? And remember, Charles stands tall, real tall. He lifts his chin up when he's throwing kicks. And when he backs out in straights, you know? Ilia's seen all that before. That's what he did to Emmett. That's what he did to Max. And once Ilia sees it more than once, he's gonna start ripping that left hook to the body, then coming up top with that clean right cross. And Charles doesn't always move his head after combinations. I can also see Charles trying to take down in the back half of the round. Maybe he tries to body lock Ilia against the fence or pull guard just to bring the fight into his realm. But Ilia's takedown defense is strong, especially against the cage. And if Charles ends up on his back too early when Ilia is still fresh, that's not a great spot. Ilia won't panic, he'll frame, posture up, and start dropping bombs. And unlike Gaethje or Poirier, Ilia can engage a little on the ground. He has the control and, more importantly, the confidence to land without giving up positions. So if the round plays out this way, Charles probably edges the early moments. He touches Ilia with some teeps, maybe sneaks in some knees, maybe lands something clean enough to make the crowd go nuts. But Ilia, he's not going to get dragged into the war. He's going to make his reads. He'll be stepping in behind the jab, touching the body, and start to find that opening for the big right, hand down the pipe, you know? That's when you see the momentum shift. That's when Charles starts backing up a bit. That's when the pressure gets flipped. And the problem is, once Ilia figures you out, he doesn't let up. I mean, after all we saw what he did to other people, against Alex Volkanovski, against Max Holloway, once he starts downloading the data, he's done. You're cooked. He destroys you. You're knocked out. And I want to believe in the long game. I want to buy into this idea that Charles can absorb the storm, regroup, and drown Ilia down the stretch. But every time I run it back in my head, I just keep seeing round one ending early. Ilia times a right hand. Charles crashes forward like he always does. Chin up, hands low, and then boom, lights out. The volume, the pressure, the aggression, they don't matter if you're unconscious in 90 seconds. So yeah, maybe if Charles can stretch this out and make it ugly, we get a war, we get blood, we get subs, we get scrambles, and that old school the Bronx magic. But if I had to bet my life on it, I think it's Topuria first round finish.